distractions during the presentation, but if we open up for questions, then you're more than welcome to unmute yourselves to ask a question.
Okay, so thank you so much, Ruby. So I think everybody should be back in the main room. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I hope you guys had some rich discussion in your breakout rooms, and hopefully we'll be able to tease out some of the things that you discussed in the breakout room as we go into the presentation. But in the interest of time, I have quite a bit of information to share, and we will try to pause probably every 15 to 20 minutes to kind of check in the chat room to see if we have any questions, if someone has a burning either question or comment that they would like to add to this forum today. As I mentioned earlier, ideally we would spend a day or two together to be able to tease out some of what we're going to learn today, but we will do our very best today. So from what I've seen in the chat so far, a lot of us are coming from farmers markets, community gardens, and some startup co-ops. So part of my presentation today will really touch different types of co-ops. So I'll focus a lot on food co-ops, but also share information on other types of cooperatives that can build and affect the food system. So again, to introduce myself, I'm Pamela Madzima. I am with the Federation of Southern Cooperatives and the Alabama State Association of Co-ops. I've been with the Federation for 16 years now. When I first joined the Federation, I started off working in a community-based forestry project where we worked with Federation members who had small tracts of forest land and who were interested in finding ways of marketing their timber collectively. And one of the projects that came out of that was developing agroforestry. So agroforestry enabled the farmers that we worked with to generate a source of short-term income as they waited for their timber to mature. And so we introduced a meat goat cooperative, and when the farmers started collectively raising their meat goats, the opportunity to market their meat goats arose. And so that's how I got started in organizing cooperatives. So the Southeastern Goat Cooperative was organized in 2007 and incorporated in 2012. And so I definitely had a lot of experience helping to start that cooperative. But in addition to helping to start that co-op and working with other co-ops of the Federation, I've also served on the board of directors of two loan funds. One is Shared Capital Cooperative, where I served 6 years on the board of directors of a cooperatively owned loan fund. And so that is a resource that is available to co-ops that are would need financing down the line, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And then I was also on the board of the Southern Reparations Loan Fund, which is another cooperatively owned loan fund that has now merged with a different loan fund called Seed Commons. And again, these are all resources that are available in the cooperative world. But one of the reasons why I share this experience is in participating on these boards and being on the loan funds of these boards, I was able to see the different types of co-ops that are being organized around the country. And so that's part of what kind of builds my experience here. So I know a few of us in the session today are a part of co-ops, so I definitely invite you to join in and share anything that you would like to add and share. Ruby will be helping me with the chat room, so hopefully the two of us will be able to make this experience as productive as possible. So again, we have about an hour right now to be able to try to get through this session, and I'll start off very briefly just giving you an overview of the Federation of Southern Cooperatives, very brief. And then from there, just to do a quick teaser of an overview of co-op basics, because some of us here are very new to co-ops, and some of us have some experience in co-ops, but the basics will basically lay a foundation as to what is a cooperative. And then from there, we'll talk about what is required to get started. And so that's really what we want to drive at. How do we get started? If we have a group of people that are interested in forming a cooperative, what are those steps that you need to ensure that you're successful? So needs assessments, steering committees, advisors, feasibility studies, we'll talk about that, excuse me. And then from there, we will talk about what is required to operate a cooperative and what are member responsibilities. So a little bit about financing and facilities, we can try to talk about that as well. So again, welcome to Co-op 101 on the nuts and bolts of cooperatives. Just to get us going a little bit, we're going to share a quick video. So Ruby's going to share her screen and just introduce us to the things that co-ops can achieve. So
At CHS, we drive farming forward every day. We're here for our owners and customers. We're there when they need us. We're 11,000 strong, and each of us helps maintain our position as a leading cooperative in our own way. Our diverse backgrounds and broad range of disciplines make us different, but we're bound by a singular purpose. We're creating connections to empower agriculture. Wherever the job takes us, we're helping our owners. With every step, we put our best foot forward. In everything we do, we own it. Our core values have evolved based on the example we've helped set. Here's how we're putting them into action. We believe in setting high standards and holding ourselves accountable. In putting the well-being of our people, customers, and communities first every day. That excellence and growth stem from diverse thinking. And we believe in working together for shared success and stronger communities. At CHS, we don't just get the job done. We roll up our sleeves and get after it. We can't imagine doing anything else, and we can't imagine anything more important than the success of farmers and ranchers. As a part of CHS, you make an impact on the people and communities you care about by creating connections to empower agriculture. We do it every day. That's how we're owning it.
all right, thank you so much. So trying to work this technology a little bit here. All right, so normally I like to watch videos like that to kind of inspire me in the work that I'm doing around cooperative development. CHS is, I think, a Fortune 100 company that was started, I believe, in the early 1900s. You can check that online for me, but they have 11,000 members now. And so I use these videos and examples to just show the different things that people can achieve in organizing cooperatives. So to just get started very quickly, so I work with the Federation of Southern Cooperatives Land Assistance Fund. The Federation was started in 1967 during the Civil Rights Movement, and we were started by 22 cooperatives, mostly agricultural cooperatives that were started by farmers in the South who were trying to find markets that would provide fair pricing for their products. And so 22 cooperatives and credit unions came together to start a technical assistant arm of the co-ops known as the Federation of Southern Cooperatives. And I'll talk a little bit about what exactly the Federation does for the cooperatives that are members. In 1985, the Federation merged with the Emergency Land Fund. And so the merger of the Federation of Southern Cooperatives and the Emergency Land Fund provided a platform for financing for a lot of the ag co-ops that were members of the Federation. And a lot of, during that time, there was a lot of foreclosures that were happening by land and farms that were owned by Black farmers. And out of that really came the Black farmers lawsuit because of some discriminatory practices that were occurring. And so again, the Emergency Land Fund stepped in to try to rescue land that was owned by a lot of Black farmers that had formed the Federation. So today the Federation has about 70 cooperatives and credit unions. We're chartered to work in 12 states, from the Carolinas to Texas, and we're also chartered to operate in the District of Columbia. The number 70 comes from an average of 5 to 10 cooperatives that we have in each state. Quite a few of our co-ops that started are dormant now, but we have some co-ops that are kind of reviving. An example is a Freedom Quilting Bee, which was an incorporating member of the Federation that became dormant, but now is being revived as a Freedom Quilting Bee legacy. So we have a few examples like that. We serve about 20,000 families, and that number really comes from some of our credit union members that sort of amplifies that membership. So I just like to share this slide because it basically shows those 22 cooperatives that came together, but the types of co-ops that were being organized. So there were producer co-ops, grocery co-ops in Alabama that were being started, credit unions in Florida, textile co-ops in Georgia, credit unions, machinery co-ops, consumer oil co-ops. So these are the 22 cooperatives that formed the organization that is now 53 years old and was started on August the 4th, 1967. So again, the Federation of Southern Cooperatives has 3 things that we work towards, which basically define our mission. One is to organize cooperatives and credit unions as a self-help economic development tool. The next thing we do is save, protect, and expand land holdings of Black family farmers and all family farmers in the South. And so one of the things that we work towards is reversing the trend of land loss. One of the challenges is among African American communities. And we also work with all farmers that face issues such as adverse possession, where a neighboring landowner may move your property line and try to take ownership of your land. And we have a forestry program where we work with the landowners so that they can avoid things like timber theft and those type of things. So we work hard to ensure that farmers are able to retain their land. And then the final thing we do is advocate on behalf of family farmers and rural communities. Some of the work that we're doing right now is to help co-op enabling laws, because in some of the states that we work in, you can only start an agricultural cooperative. You cannot start worker co-ops or other types of co-ops. So we're working to advocate and to enable co-ops and farmers to be able to thrive in their communities. So we have offices in 6 states, and I work out of the Epps, Alabama office, which is in Western Alabama. So this is another slide that I just like to show that was sketched out by John Zippert. It kind of gives you a picture of how the Federation is organized. And some of you may end up starting Federation of Cooperatives. So this is an example of the research that the Federation did to be able to structure the organization that we have. So members in the different states that I mentioned came together to start cooperatives. And then as the cooperative started in each state, where we had 2 or 3 or more co-ops, those co-ops could start a state association. So we have a state association of cooperatives in Alabama and Georgia, Mississippi, and all the other states that we work in. And then each state association elects one person to the board of directors of the federation. And then of course, the board of directors elects an executive director who elects staff such as myself, and then other co-op specialists and other people that serve the members. So this is a basic structure, and a lot of co-ops have some of this in their structure, so we'll talk about that as well. And this final slide on the federation, we are mostly made up of agricultural, marketing, and purchasing co-ops. We have a few rural community development cooperatives that are still in existence. For those of you that follow the credit union, excuse me, world, you know that a lot of credit unions are being forced to merge, especially the small credit unions, but we have a few that have managed to stay in existence. And then we have a few housing associations and land buying associations that make up the 13%. So at this time, I have one more video that I would like to show. And the question that I have for us, if you can put that in the chat room, is what type of co-ops are described in the video that we're getting ready to show? So Ruby, if you can show us that last video.
Jane owns an electric utility, a credit union, a convenience store, and an insurance company. Wait a minute, is Jane a billionaire? Nope, she's just your average Jane, and co-op member. So, what exactly is a co-op? Co-ops start with people who join together to meet a need, not to make money. People who use or deliver the co-op services are its members. Since members own and democratically control the co-op, their knowledge and participation are key to its success. Co-ops exist to serve the community first, so they focus on bringing quality goods and services to their members. Co-ops are a great choice for buying local and keeping jobs in the community. Some co-ops even pay you when business is good. Who wouldn't like that? Cooperatives provide almost every good and service imaginable. And look around, they're everywhere. So take it from Jane. Take ownership. Join a co-op or two today.
All right, so that was another very simple video that basically helps us have a broad view of the cooperative world. Okay, so I'd ask people to place to state what type of co-ops you saw in the video in the chat room. So no one has, but it was very obvious that pretty much every building or structure that you saw in that video is a cooperative. And again, we're going to talk a little bit about the types of co-ops, but cooperative businesses can be started in any and every type of industry. All right, so now we're going to get into what exactly is a cooperative. So one of the things that we like to emphasize when we're working with groups of people that come to approach us and say they want to start a cooperative is to emphasize that a cooperative is a business. And so some people that come to us and say, well, we're interested in starting a co-op may have started, for example, maybe been doing this as a hobby, or we're generating some short or small amount of income from something that they were doing, but have expressed an interest in starting a cooperative. And so one of the things that we emphasize is that a co-op is a business. And so I like to tell people, this is the time where you take off your hobby hat and you put on your business hat, because the way in which you approach this co-op development process affects the way in which the cooperative is able to thrive and to become sustained. So a cooperative is a business that is democratically owned and controlled by the people that use its services. And it is owned and controlled by people that have a shared economic goal. So in the slide that you see right here is an example of Sunkist Cooperative. This is another co-op that was started in the early 1900s by, I forget how many farmers that were growing oranges and other citrus fruit, but they came together to start a marketing cooperative for their products. And today they have over, I think, 6,000 members. And each member of the Sunkist Cooperative exercises democratic owner control. And through cooperative efforts, all of us have seen this product in our grocery store. They have been able to not only market fresh fruits, but also to add value to their product and generate an additional source of income and for their members. We can talk a little bit later on about how do you democratically control and operate a cooperative that has 6,000 members. There are definitely a lot of challenges as your cooperatives grow, but all cooperatives follow specific principles, and one of those principles is democratic ownership and control. One of the reasons why people join cooperatives is because they have a shared goal. So people realize that I cannot achieve whatever economic goal I have if I act alone. So I need to find other people that have a similar goal and objective and work together to see if we can establish a cooperatively owned business. So as I said earlier on, cooperatives are businesses. And as a business, they have various practices and principles that they're governed by. So that are similar with other types of businesses, but cooperatives also have a lot of differences from other types of cooperatives. And the way in which they're different from other types of co-ops, we'll get into this a little bit more, is in the way that they're owned, the ownership structure of the co-ops, and the way in which the members share the profit, and basically the way in which, the philosophy by which they are operated. They are operated on an democratic equity and fairness model that enables every member that joins the co-op to have full control. So if a member of the cooperative had, well, I guess the point I want to make here is that it does not matter the economic background that you have or your social background or what have you. You're starting this business to operate on a democratic member control, as opposed to other types of cooperatives that may be controlled by people that invest more money into the business. They have a greater ownership share of the business. And we'll talk more about that again later on. So the slide that I have here basically tries to do a comparison of cooperatives from other types of business structures. So there are, I think, 4 types of businesses that can be incorporated here in the United States. And so you can either start a sole proprietorship, a partnership, limited liability company, or a corporation. So a cooperative is considered a corporation because it has multiple investors, but of course, it differs from other types of corporations. So the manner in which your business is structured determines how your business is owned, controlled, and who the users are. So if someone decides to start a sole proprietorship, they are the sole owner of the business, and they definitely make all the decisions. Most of the decisions are left up to them, and they are pretty much the sole person that profits from the business. And they basically go into business to be able to provide a product for the general public. Another type of business structure, of course, is your cooperation, such as Dollar General. We have a lot of Dollar Generals where we are right now. While Dollar General is a publicly held company that is pretty much owned and controlled by all the stockholders. The major difference in the ownership and control of Dollar General as opposed to Land O'Lakes is that to have control, you have to, control of a company like Dollar General is based on your investment into the company. So the more shares you have, the greater the ownership control you have. And each corporation, of course, has a board of directors that governs each corporation, but ownership and control are different from companies such as Dollar General versus Land O'Lakes. So Land O'Lakes is another cooperative that we see in our grocery store, another cooperative that was started in the 1900s. But as a cooperative, ownership and control and use are all governed by the member producers of Land O'Lakes. And so each member of Land O'Lakes has a common equity share into the cooperative, and their vote is based on that ownership share that is not based on the investment that they made. And so it might become a little bit clearer later on. So now we're going to go into the types of cooperatives, and then from here, we'll take a break and just try to answer a few questions that you may have. So right now there are about 5 different types of co-op types that are being started in the United States these days, and actually around the world. One of the initial types of co-ops that was started, actually one of the first formal co-ops that was started in the 1800s in England was a consumer cooperative that was started by the Rochdale pioneers. And this was during the Industrial Revolution, where people that were moving from farms into the cities to look for work organized cooperatives to provide goods and services for themselves. And so consumer co-ops have been organized for hundreds of years. A consumer co-op is basically a cooperative that's owned by people that purchase a product or service from the cooperative. So examples of consumer co-ops are grocery stores that are started by people that are interested in starting an organic grocery store as opposed to shopping at a Walmart neighborhood store. So groups of people come together to start a grocery store that sometimes starts off as a buying club and then can evolve into a grocery store. And we'll talk a little bit more about how do you get started, how many members are usually required to start a grocery store. But basically, a consumer co-op is organized by people that are going to purchase a product or service from the co-op. Another example of a consumer co-op is a parent-run daycare center that is started by parents who come together to provide quality daycare for their children. And so they organize themselves into a consumer co-op for that purpose, and they hire a executive director or manager to operate. But other types of consumer co-ops are, I think credit unions can be considered consumer co-ops, but we'll get into that as well. And then another example that we have here are producer marketing cooperatives. These are started mostly by livestock producers, vegetable producers that come together to be able to market their products and achieve better prices for their produce, reach larger markets that are more profitable, and other things that, again, we'll talk about later on. And then some other newer types of cooperatives that have begun to expand over the past decades are worker-owned cooperatives. And the worker-owned co-op is started by a group of people that may have similar skills or are trying to start a business where they can attain fair wages or just want to have better working conditions, they come together to start a business known as a worker-owned cooperative. And I'll show an example of that as well. And then Ace Hardware, I had no idea this was a co-op when I first started working with cooperatives. Just like I think Best Western Plus was a cooperative. So Ace Hardware is a co-op, a purchasing co-op that's owned by the businesses that share the services of the cooperative. And then a newer type of co-op is a multi-stakeholder cooperative. And this is a rather complex type of cooperative business that is, again, gaining a lot of popularity. And this type of co-op basically has 2 or 3 or 4 classes of membership. So for example, a multi-stakeholder cooperative can be started by a grocery store that decides to have 2 classes of members, the consumers and the workers. And so based on the bylaws and the ownership structure, the consumers of the grocery store have a certain number of voting shares, and then the workers of the co-op have a certain number of voting shares. So people are starting a lot of multi-stakeholder cooperatives as part of the cooperative solidarity economy. So we have examples of multi-stakeholder co-ops that have not really succeeded, and some that have sort of evolved to make sure that they succeed. So I'll just quickly talk about one of the Federation's consumer or financial cooperative, which is the Federation of Greene County Employee Credit Unions, that was started in 1975 by 25 members, and today has grown to have over 848 members. And to be a member, you just pay $25, but you have to work, live, worship in Greene County. And today they have assets of over $1.4 million dollars worth of assets. So this is a cooperative that has managed to survive the mergers of cooperatives that are going on right now, but is owned and democratically controlled by residents of Greene County, Alabama. Another type of cooperative that I'll talk about quickly is a yard and a half landscape cooperative. And this is a cooperative that has become a worker-owned cooperative from a conversion. So the owners of the cooperative decided that they wanted to retire from their business, and they decided to sell their business to the workers of the cooperative. And so the workers, of course, had worked for the 2 owners and had a lot of experience and definitely knew how to be able to do most of the work of the business. And so they just had to learn some other aspects of running the business that every cooperative kind of encourages. So very quickly on worker co-ops, again, I'm just showing this slide to just show you the various types of co-ops that can either be converted into worker-owned cooperatives, that can be started as worker-owned cooperatives, and the economic impact and the number of members. So I think we'll be sharing these slides for you to be able to see, but basically cooperatives and worker-owned cooperatives can be started in any industry and business. Again, one of the opportunities of starting a multi-stakeholder cooperative is that co-ops get to own every aspect of the food system. So all the way from cooperatives owning, farmer cooperatives coming together, to worker-owned cooperatives, distributing products, marketing co-ops, recycling co-ops. So they're definitely places in which multi-stakeholder cooperatives can be a benefit to our farm and food system. And so that's something that's pretty encouraging. So one of the benefits, what are some of the benefits of joining and starting a cooperative? So cooperatives, again, are guided by principles, and they also provide functions and services for their members. So if a group of organic farmers, organic growers decided that they want to come together to supply whole foods, they can pull their resources together, their farms together, and start a cooperative, and this cooperative can help with transporting products from the farms to the grocery stores, storage, providing refrigerator trucking. If at any chance the cooperative decides they wanted to get into value-added production, cooperatives can, your business as a cooperative can help with that. Cooperatives can bargain on behalf of the members for fair prices. They can also help reduce the cost of inputs from bulk purchasing, and they can assist with making sure that the product that's being sold is of a good grade and quality to be able to bring about the best price. And so again, there are many, many benefits of being a part of a co-op. You're able to access affordable service. There's quality assurance that your business will require. You realize additional margins, your local economy is enhanced, and you can have reduced costs. Okay, so at this time, I think I'll just pause here for a second and stop sharing and maybe hear from some of us in the room today. Can anyone unmute yourself if you can and let me know what type of cooperative, based on the slides that I just showed, what type of cooperative are you interested in starting or are thinking of starting?
I think I'm more interested in the agricultural, like produce side of things.
Okay.
Vegetables, maybe even a grocery, go as far as that, but definitely vegetables.
Okay, thank you.
We started a co-op that started as a member co-op and has kind of moved more into a producer co-op. And part of that was because of the way in which the co-op grew, the popularity of the members in the co-op from 50 to like 450. But all
Wow.
And so maybe you could talk a little bit about, kind of some of the pitfalls or challenges that come with a member, a consumer-based co-op versus a producer co-op.
Okay, and I think your internet connection sort of lapped a little bit. I heard you say you started off with 50 members and grew to 240. Did I hear you correctly?
Right now we're at 458 consumers in the co-op.
Okay. And is it a consumer-owned co-op? What type of cooperative?
No, we're actually a producer-owned co-op after trying to be kind of a consumer owned co-op, and we ran into some challenges there, just with how to share the responsibilities with that many members.
Do you all sell produce? Just trying to follow what kind of producer owned. Is it like farmers that pool their produce?
Yeah, so we're a Black and Brown farmer owned co-op.
Cool.
Great. Anyone else want to share? If you're in a co-op or trying to start a cooperative, what type of co-op?
Yeah, I can share since I was already talking a little bit. My name's Brendan O'Connor. I'm part of a smaller startup co-op in Selma called the Local Farm Cooperative. We're technically organized as a multi-stakeholder cooperative, but it's kind of an emergent process. We're trying to figure out, does it make sense to have worker owners and community owners, possibly some producer owners in terms of other farms in the area? And we're just in our first couple of years, in our first year of actually selling some produce at a local restaurant and farmers market. So we also have a small kind of restaurant pop-up cooperative we started too through a local nonprofit that I work for, Miss Carolyn Pickett, who's on the call too. Also is connected with.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'm looking in the chat room quickly. I see there are a few questions. Let's see. Okay. All right, so quite a few comments, and I guess someone had asked what type of cooperative is a rural electric co-op. So that's a consumer cooperative. And okay, so I think we'll proceed. So so for now we have an interest in, I think, two types of cooperatives, an agriculture cooperative, and then someone in the room who's members of a multi-stakeholder cooperative. Is there any interest in starting worker-owned co-ops? Does anyone have any background in those type of co-ops, especially if they're ag-related, ag-based?
Well, we definitely want workers to, like, while we're still figuring out who our owner classes are going to be for sure, we definitely want workers to be at least one of them, and probably the one with at least like half of the voting power, just to as a way to kind of honor the labor of folks. But anyways, we're still figuring it out for sure.
Okay, all right, thanks for sharing. All right, yeah. So we're going to just proceed, and then hopefully we'll be able to again tease out some of the questions. One of the questions that we had from this rather sizable producer co-op that's in the room today. So just to move along so that we can get to sort of some of the nuts and bolts, just very quickly, cooperative principles. There are 7 principles that guide all types of cooperatives, regardless of what type of co-op you are, what the size of your co-op, and the industry that you start your cooperative in. And there are some variations of these principles that have sort of evolved over time. For example, the very first principle, which is principle 1, voluntary and open membership. Most traditional cooperatives have open membership. So basically anyone who has an interest and a common need in starting a cooperative or joining cooperative can work with other people to start a cooperative. But there are some cooperatives that are known as new generation co-ops that have closed membership. And so they basically, they based on their business plan, they've basically decided the number of members that they can invite in order for the cooperative to remain economically viable. And so, but most co-ops have a voluntary and open membership as principle 1. So the second cooperative principle is democratic and member control. Again, as I mentioned earlier on, cooperatives are different from other types of corporations in the way in which they're owned and controlled. And so the way in which every member of a co-op exercises their control of a cooperative is in the democratic member control, which is based on 1 member, 1 vote. So even if a member of a cooperative ends up investing some additional money in preferred stock, that preferred stock position that they have does not affect the 1 member, 1 vote control of the cooperative. So If you start a grocery cooperative, every member of the cooperative has an opportunity to cast their vote and show the goals and the decisions that they would make on behalf of the co-op. Another principle of cooperatives is member economic participation. So when a person decides to join a cooperative, they are required to, first of all, purchase or contribute their common stock, which is their membership stock. So again, depending on the type of cooperative that you're starting and depending on the needs of the co-op, some cooperatives require members to purchase common stock, which is your voting stock, of $25. And then there are other co-ops that may require the members to contribute $500 as a common stock. Again, it all depends on the type of cooperative that you're joining. And there are co-ops that if the membership is 500, it's a membership share that can be paid over time. So there are different ways in which co-ops can sort of generate this common stock share from their members. Another principle of co-ops is autonomy and independence. And this principle basically means that regardless of who the cooperative does business with, they will continue to stick to these principles of co-ops, the 7 principles that govern all types of cooperatives. And then another principle of co-op, which is P5, is education, training, and information. Because cooperatives are a new type of business, all members of cooperatives are encouraged to continuously educate themselves on what does it mean to be a cooperative and to understand the principles and practices of co-ops. Another principle of co-ops is cooperation among cooperatives, which is known as P6. And basically this principle basically highlights that cooperatives are part of a movement, and cooperatives tend to do businesses with other types of co-ops. And an example of that we have in the Federation, some of our producer co-ops have worked with some food co-ops in the Midwest and purchasing produce from our farmers that were marketed in some of the co-ops in Minneapolis and other places. So Principle 6 is another key principles of co-ops. And then the final 7th principle of cooperatives is concern for community. Cooperatives are started by people that reside in a community, and because they live in this community, work in this community, they have great interest in seeing that community thrive, as opposed to the Dollar Generals and the Walmarts that may come into your community, and when they feel that they do not have an economic benefit anymore, they leave the community and leave people displaced and without jobs. So again, these are the 7 principles that govern all co-ops, and all cooperatives are governed by a set of values of equity, equality, and democracy. So now we're going to get into some of the steps of how to start a cooperative. And for anyone that is interested in starting a co-op, there are generally 1 to 10 steps that people take in getting started in a co-op. And again, most of these steps may be followed in this order. There are times where some of the steps may shift, but following these 8 steps will ensure that your cooperative is successful if done correctly. So we'll get into the 8 steps that all cooperatives are used to get started. But before we get into the steps, there are different ways in which co-ops can be started. So cooperatives can be started by members that come together to form the cooperative business, or can be started and incubated by a nonprofit such as the Federation or a development group that sees a business opportunity and basically presents the opportunity to community members to say, for example, with the goat cooperative that we helped to start, the members of the producers that we're working with had an idea of what they would like to do to be able to market their produce together, but the Federation helped them to kind of develop that cooperative and help to incubate the co-op so that it could succeed. And then the third type of way in which a cooperative can be started, as we talked about earlier, is through a conversion. So either someone is retiring and would like to sell their business to their workers, or an example of a cooperative that was started because the owner was selling the business. The members decided to start the business in order to save their job. So these are the three types of ways in which cooperatives can be started. So starting a cooperative is not an easy task. It takes a lot of time and commitment, and it's a process that can go anywhere from 3 months to 2 years. In my experience from the different types of co-ops that I've seen, most cooperatives would generally take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years to start. So if anyone decides that they're interested in starting a cooperative business, one of the things that you have to realize is that it's going to take a commitment. But again, you have decided to start this business because you realize that you have a common need. So one of the things that people do when starting a cooperative is that they find people that have a common need that they may have. So an example of a need may be unavailability of work or a lack of healthy products. And so you're interested in starting maybe a farmer's market that can aggregate products in one location for the buyers, or a grocery cooperative. You may be experiencing poor quality services, and so you may decide to start a cooperative to be able to improve the quality of the services that you may be getting. Again, you may start a cooperative to be able to get fair pricing and market access or better working conditions. So the next question that I had earlier is, what is your cooperative idea and what is the need that sparked that co-op idea? But we've kind of gone through all that. So a lot of us here are interested in starting a vegetable-owned cooperative. And so as you begin to start your co-op, one of the things that you need to do is to identify professionals that can assist you in launching a cooperative. So it's very important to be able to find advisors who have had some experience in this type of industry. As I mentioned earlier on, co-ops are not a business model that are well known. And so finding advisors such as co-op developers and experts that can assist you with your feasibility study and business plans, financial consultants that can assist you in raising the startup capital that you may need for your cooperative, and other type of legal counsel and marketing consultants can really help the group of people that are interested in starting a cooperative to be successful. And we also encourage the people that are starting cooperatives to even maybe hire a part-time person that can help with some of the organizing work and help to organize meetings and other things. So we really encourage those of you that are interested in starting a co-op to be able to find someone who is in the industry that can assist you with your co-op development goals. So the second step in starting a cooperative is the pre-feasibility study. And this is basically an internal review of the endeavor that you're trying to start. So for example, if you're trying to start a vegetable co-op, one of the things that you need to ask yourself is the cooperative business model the best model for the goal that I'm trying to achieve? Would it be easier for me to just start a nonprofit organization that can help me achieve that, or a partnership, or just basically trying to tease out whether the co-op business model is the right model. And one of the things that we encourage people as they begin to start their co-op development process is to really understand what the co-op principles are and the values and culture of cooperatives. Cooperatives are different from other types of businesses in the way in which they're controlled. They're owned and controlled by 3 or more people. And so there are definitely various group dynamics that differentiate co-ops from other types of businesses. So it's very important to be able to really understand what are the principles that are going to guide the business that we're getting ready to start. And then the next thing to do is, again, to reassess what are the benefits of starting the producer. Did someone say something? Okay. All right. So once you assess and decide whether cooperative is the best legal framework, then the next thing you do is decide whether you will continue your co-op development plans or stop or reevaluate the business idea. Okay, so the next thing that you will do in your co-op development process is to start a steering committee. And the steering committee is basically the group of people that have come together with the idea of starting, again, a vegetable cooperative, a farmer cooperative. And so the initial group of people that show the most interest in starting this business are normally the group of people that serve as a steering committee. And the role of the steering committee is basically to take the cooperative from the idea all the way to it being a business entity. And so it takes a lot of commitment. Again, as I mentioned earlier on, it'll take a lot of time, but based on the initial assessment that you have, you feel that a cooperative is a model that you'd like to use, and you're willing to go to the next step, which is to begin to survey potential members of the cooperative. So again, if you're interested in starting a farmer cooperative, you basically find other farmers in your county or neighboring counties that may be potential users of the cooperative. And the survey that you give will basically collect information on where the farm is located, how many acres do the other producers have, what are the top 5 to 10 needs that they have, and what are their current markets. So when we first started organizing the producer livestock cooperative, we started off by surveying farmers in a 5-county area to be able to see how many farmers were out there that were raising meat goats, how many acres were they raising the meat goats on, what were some of the markets that they were selling to, and what were some of the needs that they had. So the initial survey is very important in helping you to really begin to understand whether you have the volume that you need to be able to start your cooperative. Again, if you're trying to start a worker-owned co-op, you go through the same process of finding people in your community that may be interested. If you're interested in starting a community-owned grocery store, one of the steps that people do is survey community members in a certain geographic area to see if there's an interest in starting a grocery store. And most grocery store startups would require at least 500 subscriptions to be able to justify starting a grocery store. So again, a survey will help you determine if there are enough members that are interested in starting a co-op. So again, you're trying to determine the business volume for the cooperative that you're trying to start. And again, the willingness and commitment for the groups of people that you're interviewing to be able to invest their time and money into the startup. So as a steering committee, you'll meet with your advisors to be able to report the findings of your initial survey. And again, this process may take anywhere from 2 to 5 months, depending on the geographic location that you're interested in surveying. And so at this point, based on your findings, this is where you come to that maybe hard decision of whether this cooperative business model may not work, may be a bit premature, or whether if you have the numbers that you need to proceed, then you proceed. in the next phase of your co-op development, which is finding the financing to be able to conduct your feasibility study. And the feasibility study can cost anywhere from $2,000 to $20,000, depending on the type of cooperative business you're trying to start. And we encourage that you get a third-party entity to really help you develop a good feasibility study. And some of the things that you're trying to capture, again, is an industry analysis of the industry that you're trying to start your co-op in, and also the market potential of your co-op. Who are your buyers, and what exactly are they looking for? What type of product are they looking for? And your feasibility study also will help you to determine the technical aspects that will be needed to be able to start your business, and the capital requirements, and other type of financial projections. And so again, based on the results of your feasibility study, the steering committee will decide whether to stop their co-op development plans or to proceed. The next step is to be able to to develop a business plan. And the business plan is basically a document that the co-op members will help to develop. And this will basically come from the results of the feasibility study. And so in the business plan, you again define what is the mission and purpose of your cooperative, what type of products are you going to market through your co-op based on the findings that you got from your feasibility study. And you begin to develop a marketing plan that shows the different markets that you plan to sell your produce to, and also understand who your competitors are and how you would differentiate your product from other competitors. And then the management structure and organizational structure of your cooperative will also be defined in your business plan. And then of course, a plan to raise capital, and the capital requirements that you'd need if you need to have facilities or equipment for your cooperative. So once you have completed your feasibility study and you have developed a business plan, then if you feel that the cooperative is a go, the next step is to incorporate. And so when you begin to incorporate, you file your articles of incorporations in the state that you are starting your cooperative. And for most of us in this Zoom meeting that are interested in starting producer co-ops, most states will allow you to start a producer-owned co-op in your state. If you're interested in starting a multi-stakeholder co-op, you may not be able to start that in the state of Alabama. You may have to go to a different state to incorporate that and then come back into Alabama as a foreign entity. One of the next steps that after you have incorporated is to draft your bylaws. And we encourage co-ops to take the time to draft the bylaws of your co-op, because your bylaws will have aspects of the bylaws that are going to be unique from other types of cooperatives. And so this could be a process that can take 2 to 3 days. It's quite okay to get bylaws from other types of cooperatives, but we encourage that you take the time to go through every aspect of your bylaws and develop it so that it represents your cooperative. And then from there, you select the people that are going to serve as your first board of directors of the cooperative, and also, excuse me, the incorporators of the articles of incorporation. And you develop policies and controls of how your cooperative will operate, the checks and balances, personnel policy, membership agreements for co-ops. So the next step after you have filed your articles of incorporation is to, again, review your feasibility study and report the findings of the feasibility study to other members that you may have been recruiting over a period of time. And basically, you're helping them understand that your cooperative idea is feasible and that there's a market that is ready to buy your products and that you have a business plan in place that will ensure the business viability. And then at this organizing meeting is when the members of the cooperative adopt the bylaws and elect the initial board of directors and also collect the common stock member equity. So the next thing in collecting member equity and capitalizing your cooperative, there's several ways in which you can capitalize your cooperative. One way is, of course, from your ownership stock, common stock from the members. Again, as I mentioned earlier on, this may range anywhere from $25 to $500, depending on the type of cooperative you're trying to start. You can also offer preferred stock to community residents who may have an interest in seeing your cooperative start. If you're starting a value-added agricultural cooperative, you can get grants from USDA to do a value-added feasibility study. You can also approach a bank to be able to gain financing. And normally, if you're in a cooperative, the banks and other lenders will require the members of the co-op to at least invest 40% of the capital needs before they provide the financing. So again, as you're raising capital for your cooperative, you're beginning to determine what type of physical facilities you need and the different functions that your cooperative will provide. And so the 8th step in your co-op development process is to hire a manager that can help to provide the day-to-day operating practices for your co-op. And then, of course, to implement your business plan and to open the co-op. So this is just a summary of the 8 steps that are required to be able to start a cooperative. And I'm going to just highlight some of the things that we emphasize co-ops to use and have in place when they start. And it starts off with making sure that you have articles of incorporation that are filed with the Secretary of State, and that you have functional bylaws that you revisit often that determine and help to ensure that the cooperative remains compliant and meets the original needs of the intentions of starting the co-op. And then, of course, to have business and marketing plans in place and financial statements, production and operation and marketing agreements, membership lists, and a list of financial and technical assistance advisors. And some tips for good startup for co-ops. Again, as I mentioned earlier on, Principle 5, constant education is very important for co-ops. A lot of people that join cooperatives and join boards of co-ops are very new to the cooperative business model. So it's very important for constant education of both the board of directors and new members that join the cooperative. And without the members, the cooperatives would not exist. So continuous member engagement and participation is key in ensuring that cooperatives are successful. So this chart basically just breaks down the key players in all co-ops. Co-ops are started by members, groups of people that come together because they have an economic need. When over time, they develop a board of directors that help to manage the manager who does the day-to-day operations of the co-op, and then the manager hires employees to, again, achieve the goals and purposes of the cooperative. And this is just a slide that shows the rights and responsibilities of co-ops. Okay, so in closing, I will quickly just share an example of a cooperative that is a member of the Federation in the Mississippi office. And this cooperative is Indian Springs Farmers Cooperative. It was started in 1981 by 42 members. To be able to join the cooperative, you have to purchase shares of $200, and then you pay an annual membership share of $12 each year. The majority of the farmers have either farm between 1 to 75 acres of land. Over time, the cooperative has been able to establish a processing facility that has coolers, washing tables, sorting tables, and they're able to basically add value to their vegetable products. So basically, each year the co-op meets and decides what each member of the cooperative is going to grow, and they fill marketing agreements with each member of the co-op to make sure that the co-op members produce and supply the volume of produce that they committed to providing to the co-op. And this cooperative sells a variety of vegetable products from watermelon, squash, okra, bell peppers, various types of specialty crops. And the cooperative basically markets to various markets in the region and outside of the region, and they collaborate with other types of cooperatives to be able to meet their marketing needs. I think I'll just skip through this for now and probably take questions. I see it's already 3:30, so I'm going to pause here. Stop sharing. Okay, and maybe try to answer some questions that we may have about cooperatives. If there's something that you were interested in hearing that you did not hear, or a question that I did not answer, now's the time that we'll take a few moments to be able to answer any questions that you may have. So someone did ask if I'll be able to share slides. So Ruby has a copy of the slides, and so she'll be able to share with all the participants that participated today. So does anyone have any particular questions about starting a co-op or some of the steps? Okay, I think one of the questions that I did not really get to earlier on, I think, is the name Dominique? Okay, so Dominique had asked a question earlier on. Can you repeat that question again for us, please?
Sure. We ran into some challenges with the consumer, a consumer-based co-op versus a producer-based co-op, and so maybe you could talk more about the benefits of one versus the other.
Okay, and when was this cooperative started?
Started in March.
Oh, this year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so is it, I'm curious, is it a grocery co-op? I mean, what type of consumer co-op is it?
Yeah, so we started as a consumer co-op, and it was really a need to secure our food sources for the Black and Brown community here in Birmingham, especially during COVID, as well as work with the farmers that I knew to access new markets, because a lot of our markets had been either shut down, or the ways in which we sold things had dried up. So we started as a consumer cooperative and grew very quickly. And some of the challenges that we found around that were things like, how to balance or hold space for, as many members as possible in this kind of democratic process, when, there are just so many people. And so we moved to a producer co-op where we were taking on the responsibility as the farmers and then providing this service to the consumers.
Okay, so it looks like you may have maybe a multi-stakeholder cooperative with two different type of membership classes. You've got the buyers, the consumers, and then the farmers or producers. And I'm just curious to know, did you go through some of the steps in co-op development from, you know, a group of people that came together to kind of tease out this concept?
I think in a very grassroots way, you know, I was kind of going through the steps and I'm like, ooh, that would have been a good one to go through. You know, but so I will say not in as formalized of a way as you've laid out here, but I think that, you know, it was very obvious to, especially us who had started the co-op, that the need was present, and then of course, you know, the number of members who wanted to participate almost immediately definitely showed a need. But I think, you know, you really touched on something important about the importance of that continual education around understanding, you know, what are the responsibilities that members have to a co-op, and how to share that responsibility, because it is a model that, you know, we haven't been familiar with. But my question, I guess, goes back to, is there, you know, what are the kind of some of the benefits of a producer-owned co-op versus a consumer-owned co-op?
Okay, well, it basically starts with, you know, okay, so you asked what are the benefits of a consumer as opposed to a producer co-op. It really starts off with who are the members. So, you know, who are the people that are coming together to start this cooperative will determine the type of co-op. So if it's farmers that are coming together, they're going to start a producer co-op to market their products, but consumers are coming together to purchase produce from the producers. And so they're really starting a consumer co-op. So like I said, it seems as though you have two classes of co-op membership that are sort of starting a multi-stakeholder cooperative. So you have farmers that will want to get paid a fair price for their produce. Then you have the consumer side who want, again, fair prices for the produce they're buying and are willing to pay a certain price. And so that's where the dynamics of multi-stakeholder cooperatives become tricky. An example that I did not share is of a evergreen cooperative. They were started by a nonprofit that basically started co-ops in two different classes, but they weren't really one co-op. So there were two different co-ops that basically helped to benefit each other. And so maybe what you might need to do is make it simple and separate the two classes and build two cooperatives side by side. And then maybe over time, you know, they can either collaborate and become a multi-stakeholder or just remain separate, but you have two separate co-op entities that you're starting. Again, you know, the steps that I went through, you know, are very important in really determining who your members are. Does everybody have the same values and interest in economic participation? You know, making sure that, you know, members are exercising their votes at meetings openly, so that you don't have a meeting that starts here and then a side meeting that will help end up disrupting the co-op. So, but thanks a lot for sharing that. The larger the cooperative group is, you know, the more complex it gets. But if you're starting a grocery cooperative, we're assisting a group of people to start a grocery cooperative right now. And the first thing that they're doing is surveying their community members to see if there is an interest and who the buyers are and what type of products are they most interested in purchasing. And in most grocery co-ops, depending on the square footage of the grocery store you're trying to start, you need to at least have over 500 subscriptions. So again, based on the business model, it's different from other types of co-ops. So, feel free to reach out to us at the Federation. I know we've gone over time, so I want to thank everybody for your patience. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to let me know. We're here to help you organize your co-ops. We work with a network of cooperative organizations that can help with financing, that can assist with other things that you need assistance with. So thank you so much for joining. And I see Ruby is on the screen now, so she'll lead us into our closing.
Yeah, so before we head off, thank you so much everyone for coming. And just quick plug, by becoming a member of ASAN, you become part of our network and help strengthen our local food system. So I'm just gonna drop a link in the chat to join. And then the last thing is, before we leave, I'm gonna launch a quick poll so you can just kind of let us know how we did, and so we can improve for future sessions. So I'll go ahead and launch that, and then I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you, Pamela, for that fantastic presentation. I learned personally so much.
All right, great. Thank you so much, everyone.